Welcome back, guys. We are in our TVT series here between ForGG and MVP. It's time for game number 3.
Game number 3 between the two Terran players here. In game number 1, ForGG schooled MVP a little bit, but the LGIM Terran player was just a little bit slow to pick up the pace, and now in game number 2 he really showed his opponent how to do it, was able to clinch out a victory. So we are going to jump into game number 3 very soon, trying to find out who takes the lead in the best of 5.
Yeah, what map is that one? That's going to be Daybreak. Oh, really cool map for TVT, because this map is one of those ones where there's that little choke point in the middle if the game goes late. A lot of Hellion run-bys possible at the third map.
Do you remember the good old days? We're coming to work, you know, guys. That was actually like a long time ago, and it was always like funny. Like it was GOMTV. That was back in 2011. Wolf and I would go to work, and we were both like, Terran versus Terran, Daybreak being in the map, and we were both like, dude, just pray that it's not going to be CC first versus
Oh,
CC
I remember this story. I remember this story.
We go into the game, and you know, like it starts. We're like, "Oh yes!" Both like just looking at each other.
It was so funny. I mean, those
first 20 minutes, nothing.
I think you and I were getting makeup on or something. We talked about this, and we're like, as long as we have CC first versus CC first. And this is before game number 1 of like, I think we had 3 TVTs that day.
Yeah.
And like the very first game, and both of them go CC first on Daybreak, and you and I just look at each other like.
No, that was really cool. Back in the days, and if that happened, you knew first engagement around 20 minutes.
Back in the day, the TVT was actually just not as fun to watch as it is now.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite matchups actually to cast nowadays.
Heart of the Swarm did a lot. Those Halberd drops that we have Widowmine drops a lot. Early aggression, TVT and all mirror matchups actually are getting a lot more interesting. Especially the changes to ZVZ just really worked apparently. It's a little bit too early to tell, but you can see so many different strategies now, and the same is true for Terran versus Terran. So Blizzard, with all the things that they do to develop the game, are doing a great job here, slowly but steadily just improving it and making it a priority to make the games interesting to watch.
Yeah, exactly, and it certainly is working. I'm looking forward to seeing how it's even going to develop further, because we're just at the beginning of Heart of the Swarm right now.
It's actually something that David Kim stated in several interviews already in the past, that their priority really is to make it a sport in esports, just to develop the game so that for the viewers it's always very dynamic. That's the goal, and they're experimenting with a lot of things to make that happen. Works so far really well, but we're going to see if it works for game number 3 in our Terran versus Terran. ForGG up against MVP. The map is live. It is Daybreak. Let's jump into the match. And starting to the bottom right, we currently have our Terran player here in red.
Millennium ForGG from Europe.
And by that you mean bottom left.
Yeah, I was a little bit distracted because can you hear anything?
Yeah, I think I can hear you. Wait, talk again.
I can't hear you, and I don't have in-game sound, so.
I have no in-game sound, but I can hear you. We have a very special set of production today, so sorry we don't have observing computer right now. We have Gisato though, doing a good job observing.
We are going a little bit more rogue this time, a little bit of an indie production. We're going to go full ninja style.
We have like a blue screen behind us. It's really interesting. I've like never actually had. I don't think I've. Besides, no BWC. I had blue screen there. I usually don't end up in studios that have blue screen production though.
Okay.
I kind of like it.
Oh, blue screens are actually like really cool. I personally like it too. Well, we're jumping into the game now. We have our Terran versus Terran going on here, and let's see what happens here. MVP so far already showing us that he doesn't want to go into any kind of shenanigans. We have him not with anything that would indicate him going for an aggressive play once again.
Yeah, and I think with this gas first, I wonder what he's going to. I wonder what he's going to have planned here, because right now it's looking more like we're going to see just a Reaper play based on his barracks placement. And with the barracks placement here on the left side of the map, you can get the Reaper to jump out pretty quickly. Although on Daybreak, there's not a lot of spaces, including the space to the left side of the map where he might want to jump down.
Yeah, that's completely true. I mean, I completely agree with what you just said. One of the things that we might see later on, of course, is once again this drop play. And it seems to me like, especially ForGG tries to be the aggressive player if MVP allows him to be. But MVP has really shown in game number 2 that he wants to shut him down early on. I'm really curious to see what exactly the strategy is going to be for the LGIM Terran player now in game number 2. He's the one who starts with his faster factory, so if there is going to be a drop play, it will be him who starts it. But I would really love, to be honest with you, to see maybe even an opening. I'm just thinking aloud. Maybe an opening with the Banshee. How do you think that would actually fare against ForGG style to go into Hellbat drops all the
Yeah,
time?
it could definitely work. The thing is, I think that you're absolutely right in that it's a good idea. The likelihood of us seeing it just based on history alone, though, is pretty small.
I don't think that we're really going to see it, but it's something that Beyond uses. That's one of the examples that we always give when it comes to the Terran versus Terran and players falling back on Banshee style. And I feel like against what ForGG does, it might be a build that has some merit here. But at this point, of course, what we have in the game is actually the second gas for MVP, and he goes into Widow Mines and already prepares the starport so that he can start with the drop lane.
And with the second gas, it may be that we see a Hellbat follow-up to this instead of a quick command center, which I like. It's very strong, especially on a two-player map. Any two-player map is generally good for Hellbat drops.
And you know, it looks actually like we might actually see a Banshee here.
Yeah,
we have
from
a starport,
ForGG.
a starport being built and a tech lab nearby.
Unless he wants to do his trademark one tank drop. He could, of course, use the tech lab on the factory and make one tank and do a drop.
He could. I mean, it's not unheard of. I actually saw that just recently. When was that? Let me think about it.
You know what's funny about the tank drop is if you actually hit it at the right timing and you micro well, like we've seen players like Morrow occasionally do with tanks in a medevac, you can do a lot of damage because they do so much DPS and you can pick it up. They have a lot of hit points, and it's not a strategy that is a good strategy, but it's a strategy that you see one out of like every 10,000 TBTs.
You know, I was following the discussion that we had yesterday. I went to the comments a little bit and had a look at what people said about the groups that we didn't cast. The one thing that I really thought was really funny is that ForGG actually doesn't have APM, he has HPM. That's the Hellbats per minute.
Hellbats per minute. That's actually he's quite high on that one.
By the way, look what we have in the production tab.
Both
we
cloak.
are prophets. Both of them are going into the cloak and the banshees to follow up here for MVP. But first of all, we have the Widow Mine. And apparently ForGG didn't get the memo that you should never attack Widow Mines with SCVs.
Yeah, I was about to say that. It's actually impossible to kill a Widow Mine that's burrowing with any workers, whether it's drones, probes, or SCVs before it burrows. So tip out there for newer players, if someone ever drops a Widow Mine in your main base,
Run.
don't kill it, run.
Just run. That's the only thing that you can do. Run as fast as you can and as far as you can.
Because basically, if you're attacking that Widow Mine, you're hoping that they forgot to press burrow on it or something. I don't know what you're hoping for.
That is kind of what's happening there. That's definitely true. But well, you know, we have Banshee number 1 in the main base of MVP now. And let's see how the Terran player to the top right is able to defend against this. He doesn't really have a lot of anti-air. He's just now building his Viking. But so far, the Banshee already accumulating kills.
Yeah, but MVP still has a Widow Mine in the main base. There's not enough energy for a scan. He also has a drop ready to come back in and continue to do damage. So both players taking heavy losses. Meanwhile, they're both going into a command center. MVP's command center, though, will be denied here by this Banshee. Really smart move. But now MVP's own Banshee arrives. That scan good for the Banshee and the Widow Mine.
So far, we don't have combat shields. Therefore, 2 hits take down a Marine, and with the cloak done, that is even more important now, and scans have to be used. Both of these players doing a lot of damage here, but Banshee number 2 already in the main base of MVP. Flying right into the missile turret.
Yeah. And right now, ForGG is taking heavier losses. He is not able to complete his turret, and it looks like MVP is going to start to take a massive lead here, as long as he continues to control this Banshee and deny the turret. Every time the SCV starts to build the turret, he targets that one, even gets away here. But you know what? He doesn't have a scan for this one, and now ForGG actually puts his Banshee in the right spot. Both players at 13 to 9 SCVs at the nearly 9-minute mark in this game.
Yeah, that is really a funny match that we are currently seeing. This is pretty intense here. 11 against 9 Harvesters. Another Banshee heading out here. Expansion now on the natural for MVP. He's a little bit ahead in supply with 23 to 20, but here comes the Banshee taking down another SCV. Both of them now being at 11 at the 9-minute mark. It's like we just started the game.
Yeah.
Everything is reset.
It's like if you spawned with 10 SCVs, a Banshee, and a Viking, and like 1 Hellion, or in this case 2, and ForGG with the reactor over there, starts a Raven. It's about time. That Raven is going to give him a lot of detection against anything that he can't see.
And now, the situation as it is a little bit better for MVP with those additional Harvesters that he already has. Well, the problem that he really has is that his command center is a bit later. So actually, ForGG should take the lead in Harvesters and also has those extra mules. In terms of scans, they both dropped quite a lot to make this happen. But right now the supply lead starts to shift in ForGG's favor, but he doesn't have the command center on the low ground just yet.
Yeah, and that's where these mules and the SCV saturation is going to really start to help MVP. He has a nice defense set up against this last Banshee that we'll see from ForGG, but he flies it away. That's unfortunate. Now he sees it, though. He's going to be able to corner that Banshee. We'll need probably one scan to kill it.
Yeah, ForGG now taking a little bit of a harvester supply lead, but he has to reposition the CC in the main base, trying to get shots off here. The Banshee is not able to survive. Goes down, the 3 Vikings, definitely enough to make this happen.
Yeah, a lot of Hellions coming out for ForGG right now. Wonder if he's got a plan for that.
And you know, guys, we were talking about this earlier. This is really entertaining right now. This is kind of what we want to see in mirror matchups, not these packs that players sometimes chose in the TVT area where we had like 15 minutes, no rush. No, this is action from the first to the last minute. All these move outs. Once again now, ForGG moving out with a few of his Hellions here trying to apply pressure, but he's welcomed by MVP's army in the middle of the map. A lot of Vikings to dominate the air and the Banshee that is being guarded.
ForGG has the Raven, though, and the Raven is going to give him the ability to drop point defense drones to deflect this attack, but still so much pressure here from from MVP on ForGG, and he has the mining still at the command center right now, so he's starting to pull further and further ahead this game, but as I mentioned before, that point defense drone just going to be a bit too much for him to handle.
It was a really smart move by MVP to camp those Vikings on top of the starport to make sure that additional anti-air units of ForGG would immediately being sniped, but then the Raven kind of working his way up and trying to drop down that point defense drone to make sure that it's not going to become a big issue, a game-ending issue. But it's MVP who starts to pull ahead in overall supply now. He has more army supply than his opponent, and especially with the air army, it gives him a little bit of map control that he can now use to limit ForGG's movements.
Yeah. ForGG is starting to add his factories now. Seems a little bit flustered in this game. Maybe playing against too many European Terrans now, forgetting what it's like to play against MVP. And MVP now, I mean, he's got a massive lead, but ForGG always plays this style where he powers up his production facilities as he gets his economy going. So right now he has all these factories going down. He has reactored Hellions coming out, but during this time where he's powering up, MVP has some timing windows he can try to hit because he has the much better army right now.
And you know what you just mentioned, the European Terrans, it's really something that I want to talk about again. We mentioned this earlier. When people quote statistics, you always have to look at the data and just evaluate it and just have a quick idea of, okay, how important or how conclusive is that data really. And if you just look down ForGG's match history, you realize that about 95% of his opponents were European Terran players, which doesn't mean that he didn't beat strong opponents. Taking a 3-2 against Lucifron is definitely something that you can be proud of.
Lucifron probably the best foreign Terran player in the world.
Taking down Strelok and MMA is also really important, but then further down the road we have so many Terran players that just don't really make an impact in the international scene, that are still representative in Europe and can do a lot and always take maybe a best of 1 or best of 3 of you. But if you value that against a player that is completely limiting his play against Korean players participating, let's say, in Pro League, in GSTL, in Code A, Code S here in Korea, then it's just a bit of a different quality of games and quality of data that you have.
You're absolutely correct on that. Not to depreciate anything that European players have done, but it's just another level of play. I mean, it's almost like the major leagues versus the mid-tier, I don't want to say minor leagues, but somewhere in between. But hold that thought, because MVP here is going to kill a bunch of SCVs. ForGG going to do the same, though, on the other side of the map. There is a bunker in play. Drops his Vikings. Probably will drop an auto turret or 2 as well here to help defend.
You know, actually, well, we both have now these Hellions moving in, taking this down. It really looks a little bit silly at this point, but so many Harvesters killed by MVP, both of them just going all out for the aggression here. But with the Vikings that are landed, at least ForGG should be able to limit those movements of the Hellions.
Yeah, right now, ForGG just not able to accomplish as much as MVP with this attack, and he's cornered now here, going to lose the last of his Hellions, and now MVP almost doubles his supply here.
You know, the point that you made about the difference in quality of games is really significant, and as you said, it's not taking anything away from the foreign scene, but there is a pretty big reason why when Blizzard announced the new WCS system, there were not a lot of Europeans and Americans that were going like, sick, now finally I can move to Korea and get all that easy money.
Yeah, it's just how it is. I mean, if we speak honestly, which I like to do very often, This is the situation that Europeans face. But MVP here, all he has to do now in this particular game is hold off the attack.
Yeah,
and
he's at 83 supply right now against 47, and it really shows. But it's all actually the economy supply. It's 5 SCVs against 47. So the army supply is very much the same. It all comes down to the hold here.
Yeah, you know what? ForGG could actually win this game still. He's got a lot of Blue Flame Hellions on the Vikings at the back doing some damage. Seeker Missile is active. Nice pull there on the Viking.
Really well done, but the siege tank on the high ground, this is so important. This
and
is
the Banshee as well.
Here. That is going, MVP is really trying what he can. ForGG is going all out on this attack, but the Harvester count still overwhelmingly in favor of MVP, and it looks like he's able to hold, and this will secure his second win in the series. Look at that tank with 3 hit points.
Yeah, that Banshee with 23 kills, and I have to say, you know, a lesser player would have died actually to ForGG's timing there, simply because he had so many units, but MVP holds.
If you have 5 harvesters against 40 and you're still at very similar supply, then it means that your army is just huge. ForGG loses game number 3, and this means that after losing the initial match, MVP has now taken 2 in a row and is ahead in the series.
Yeah, 1 game left, if he wins, that is, to advance to the round of 4, the semifinals. We are starting to kind of fill out the gaps here. This tournament has been really exciting, and I mean, it's not even really close to being over just yet, but it's cool to see how the stories of the groups have now moved into the bracket stage and how things are moving forward. We saw really exciting games this morning, which I definitely recommend checking out the VODs of if you tuned in a little bit late today. Yeah, the games were really intense, and now, of course, with the Terran versus Terran, the trend just continues. MVP at first taking that loss, taking out 2 games in a row, and it's really impressive. He just needs to win 1 more map, and then he will advance to the semifinal. Exactly. The next map is going to be Neoplanet S, a map we have seen so many times already, of course, in this tournament, and it's a pretty exciting map for Terran versus Terran 2 because the third base is really far away, so there's a lot of potential for aggression there. Will we even see a third base, though? Because the ways these two guys have been playing, it certainly doesn't look like we're going to go there. You know, after game number 3, I just have one question for you. Should ForGG have built Hellbats? We didn't see any, and it didn't really work well for him. I feel that there was definitely something lacking. I just can't put my finger on what it is. You know, Hellbats could have helped him potentially. His HPM in game number 3 was very, very low, and I feel that became an issue here. Yeah, MVP certainly had higher HPM there. Yeah, we are going into game number 4. It's going to take place on Neoplanet S. ForGG, can he come back into the series, or is MVP going to win it with a 3-1? We're going to find out right now.